The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Hey, good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. I'll be your host today, Rebecca Miller, along with Otto, Lohse, who is our co-host, and Christina Liu, who is the radio show producer for Project Independence and You, going into our 11th year. Our show today is, as always, excellent topics and guests. Our first guest is going to be Natalie Ryan, and Natalie is the Long Island Community Partnership Manager for the Nature Conservancy. So that's quite a title. Very curious to hear all about the Nature Conservancy, and it would be great actually to hear a little bit about how you started and kind of what motivation led you to this kind of career.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Rebecca. I have been really involved in Long Island work and Long Island issues, since way back when I was an intern on different campaigns in high school. So I love all things Long Island. I'm so excited to see millennials starting to buy houses here and making this their home. I came up more on the government and politics side. I worked on the East End as an organizer for a little bit of time before moving on to Congress. I worked in the 3rd Congressional District for about 2 years, working with different constituent groups, hearing what everybody had to say. So I really felt that there was a passion in Long Island for these different groups coming in, to lobby their congressmen to talk about what they believed in. And you could really see the passion, especially in environmental groups and climate groups, sort of trying to navigate what Long Island is going to look like for the future. And wanting to make sure that it stays beautiful. And we have all of our great resources here. We have all the great water that we enjoy here. So just making sure that it was there for future generations. And that really resonated with me. After Congress, I took a little bit of a detour into education. I worked at Long Island University. I worked at Cornell University. So when it was time to make, my next move and sort of figure out what I wanted to do for my career, I thought long and hard about what sort of group I wanted to align myself with and what sort of projects I could be promoting. And the Nature Conservancy really stood out to me. They have been doing so much work on Long Island. Originally, it was very quiet work where they were just, quietly conserving land and making sure it stayed beautiful. And now really, taking and owning what they've done and sort of bringing it out to the world and saying, this is what we're doing. We're working on climate, we're working on water issues, we're working on conservation issues. And there's just so much going on and so much to talk about. And I think that they're doing a great job in sort of being there for the community. And that's what my new position is all about, being here. I'm the Long Island Community Partnership Manager, like you mentioned. So my role is really to talk to different community groups, folks that we haven't spoken to before, that have an interest in conservation in the environment, and making sure that we're working on the sorts of things that really interest the people of Long Island, and making sure that we're always connected and we're always in conversation, and making sure that we're working together on these issues.
Wonderful.
I found that interesting that Nature Conservancy is a global operation. And I read that it's involved in 75 countries. So we're talking Long Island, but the picture is a lot bigger than just Long Island. And I was kind of interested in...
We actually operate, in all 50 states and 78 countries and territories. So our work is global. We have great big global goals that we're trying to accomplish in conservation. But I think that, part of what the Nature Conservancy sees there is that all of this great work that's happening starts at a local level. So how can we use all the great resources and all the great people that we have on Long Island to make sure we're hitting those global goals? and just making sure that we're taking it from a really grassroots place and saying, okay, well, what can we do out locally to hit those goals? What needs, what sort of projects can we tackle? What's going on here on the ground? And that's a big part of my role, is to talk to and with the different organizations here on Long Island. There are so many that are involved, in the different aspects of conservation and environmentalism in Long Island. It's nice that we have so much passion here, that there are so many different groups. So it's my job to sort of talk to folks and figure out how we can work together.
Are there any major players that are not members of the Nature Conservancy? Specifically, let's talk Russia or China. Are they members of this?
Yes. So we have teams all over Europe. I'm not sure about our work in Russia. I don't think that we have teams in that country. Our work is really focused on what we can do. We're nonpartisan, non-political, so our work is focused on what we can do as a company, as a group. The work that we do in buying up land, the work that we do in sort of working with our natural resources, with our parks, with our partners there. So we are working on as much as we can, and I know we're trying to expand also, but no, not to my knowledge.
So kind of in terms of Long Island, like I remember growing up, it was a long time ago, we used to do our books. We would use like paper bags to cover our books and things like that. Like, that was kind of, back in the day, conserving and also saving money, and we didn't need all these colorful things. So I don't know, just that thought came to mind. I used to do that. But really on Long Island, I know it's very different than what's going on maybe in India or even other parts of the country. What are the 5 most critical areas on Long Island? The critical items on Long Island that we really need to work on.
Yeah. So we are doing a lot of work right now. We want to make sure that we're protecting New York's endangered wetlands. That's a big part of what we're doing, locally. We are working to pass the Environmental Bond Act that's coming up in November of 2022. It's going to be on the ballot. It's super important. We were originally $3 billion were proposed for it. Now we're looking at $4 billion. So something for everybody to look out for in the ballot is money that's going to that. We are working to grow the Environmental Protection Fund. We want to fund the Clean Water Infrastructure Act. So there's a lot going on right now, state and federally, sort of legislative goals that we need to hit, making sure that money goes to the right places. But the work that we're doing specifically on Long Island has a lot to do with water quality, making sure that the nitrogen levels are where they need to be. We're doing a lot of work on our preserves, making sure that they're equitable and accessible for all different folks. We're doing a lot of work on climate adaptation and mitigation. So taking the changes that we're seeing in the environment and figuring out how we can change local laws or local regulations or building codes to be more adaptive and more reflective of the world that we're living in right now.
Okay, great information. So again, back, locally, I'd love to talk about the things that, we can do, or, even the accomplishments that we've made so far. I'm sure that, Long Island is progressive, and, we try to adapt. What are the things that Long Islanders are doing right? And what are the things that we can do more of in terms of like residents, people?
Yeah, of course. So I think a big thing that we can talk about and that we should talk about is Long Island water quality. So it affects, every aspect of our life. A lot of people live here in Long Island because of our beautiful bays and oceans and all the water that we have around us, all the great opportunities that affords. So the Nature Conservancy started working on water quality issues quite a ways back. We were actually given land to preserve and restore on Long Island. I'm sure you all know this. I'm not telling you something new, but Long Island used to be a great clamming sort of shellfish industry here. And so the Nature Conservancy was given land after the last clam was gone and useless. So there was something about our waters, the clams, could not thrive here. So the Nature Conservancy was given land. And the idea was that we could reverse what was happening in the Great South Bay, right? We wanted to reintroduce clams to build this thriving economy again. And it was a failing effort, actually, year after year of trying to introduce clams and figuring out, okay, why is this not working when it used to work so well here? What are the issues involved? And we actually came to realize that it was the nitrogen pollution that's in our waters that is not allowing the same industry that used to be previously. So excess nitrogen in coastal waters is affecting, everything here on Long Island. We're suffering from too much nitrogen, and it's coming from inadequately treated human waste from septic systems. So you were talking about what folks can do in residential areas and commercial areas. And I know that, along the North Shore of Long Island, we still have quite a few people that are involved with septic. And a lot of the systems are old and they're failing. So what we're trying to do now, there's been so much money and attention that's been put on this nitrogen pollution problem that there are actual grants for folks, for homeowners, that they can switch over their systems to something newer, that's cleaner, greener, and better for the environment. So there's, a federal grant money, there's local grant money. And if folks want to get involved in that or see if they're able to take advantage of that, they can go to, we have a website that they can go to. It's reclaimourwater.info. And it lets people check their eligibility to see what grants are available. And it lets them see what contractors are available. So it's a really, not easy, but it's a really, good way to sort of look at, okay, it's cost effective now because of all the grants. It's cleaner, it's greener, it's better for your property. So that's definitely something that folks can take a look at and figure out, if they're in that area, that's something that they can do. And it's something that shows an effect. We've seen that cleaning up these systems is one way to reduce the nitrogen pollution, and it helps clean our water. So it's really something that folks can get involved with and do.
In 1971, I moved to Manhasset, and I lived there for 25 years. And we had 6 kids, and we had a cesspool, which was the worst ever. And at that time, 50 years ago, they were talking about getting rid of cesspools, and they were going to put in a sewer system, which we thought was a great idea. But a lot of people didn't want that because they were afraid that if they had a sewer system, it would change the nature of the neighborhood, if you will. And now bigger buildings and high rises and whatever were going to come in because the sewer system would be able to handle it, whereas cesspools could not. And that's 50 years ago, and it's still going on. And, we used to have somebody come and pump the cesspool out at least twice a year. And my lifelong dream was we bought a new cesspool. So I don't get it, why this hasn't been corrected from 50 years ago. And what you're describing is it's a big contributor to the nitrogen pollution problem. I don't know. I don't get it. We should just somehow, it's got to happen.
Yeah, right now there are about 380 homes with individual septic systems, 380,000 homes with these septic systems that need to be replaced. So each one is a real issue that we can tackle one at a time. So like you said, right, we have a problem that's been identified. It's been identified for many years now, but it's solvable. We know how to solve it. We've been working on this for just a few years now, and we've been calling folks in Cape Cod, around Chesapeake Bay, to learn how they've been navigating the same sort of issues. So it's something that folks should really look into now, knowing the effects, knowing that we have a way to fix it, we have a way to solve it, and there's grant money involved. So now is a great time to sort of take a look and figure out if you're in that area, if your septic needs upgrading. It's a real tangible result, and it's something that we're very focused on right now.
So Natalie, kind of what Otto was, talking about, being in a home, in a community where the community, the town, the municipality, whatever area hasn't converted over to sewers. So if you're in an area like that, what is it that can happen? You would just get a more updated cesspool set up, one that's much more friendly?
Yeah. So the old systems weren't great at holding in the nitrogen pollution. It would leak into the ground and then make its way to the water systems. So the new ones are much greener, much more eco-friendly, and they're able to control that nitrogen pollution, so it doesn't seep out into the water. So yes, if you're living somewhere where it's not yet sewered or not able to be sewered, there are ways to upgrade your septic system to make it cleaner.
Okay.
I'll tell you, one of the first things we moved like after 25 years to New Hyde Park, one of the first criteria was we need to have sewers, no cesspools, because when you live with cesspools, it's a hassle. If you have, you got like rigid shower hours and you can't do this and the laundry. And I mean, we talk about washing machines throwing stuff into the ground. Besides human waste, it's a hassle, and I don't know why people fight that. I really don't.
Yeah, it's tough, and especially in places that aren't yet able to have sewer hookups. I know that a big hurdle of it is the financial. Septic systems can cost quite a bit of money, but the grants available right now cover, if not all of it, a very large portion of it. This is something that not only the Nature Conservancy, but our local government, our federal government is really investing in, and they've seen the payoff here. So, folks sometimes think, oh, that's a home upgrade for another time. It just costs a little bit too much. So we're really urging folks to take a look at what are available now, because it might be more cost friendly than they even realize.
So individual homes can do this, even if the whole area doesn't want to do something like sewers.
Correct.
They could do their thing, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just an upgraded septic system that's much newer with technology and greener.
Adds to the value of your home.
And is this grant good for anyone on Long Island? Because you mentioned something about the North Shore. I don't know if you were just referring that they have more people in this situation.
They have more people in this situation. There are different grants for Nassau and for Suffolk, but both have grants available. So again, I would urge folks to check out the website. It's reclaimourwater.info, and it has all the information that they need there if they qualify for the grants and what's available, resources to help. The Nature Conservancy has been working really hard on trying to get out into different communities to let them know that this is going on. So, if people have questions, we're happy to help, and we're here to help.
I think it's wonderful, especially because, with Project Independence, we have so many seniors that might be in need. But we have to take a quick break. We've been speaking with Natalie Ryan from the Nature Conservancy. You're listening to 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. And we will be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios Podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You here at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. I'm Rebecca Miller, your host, along with Otto Lohse and Christina Liu, who's the radio show producer. Our guest today is Natalie Ryan, and Natalie is the Long Island Community Partnership Manager for the Nature Conservancy. So welcome back after our quick break. And, some great information you provided for us. And we do have the website, and people can always call 311. Any listeners that are interested can call 311 for more information. But I did want to talk about, of course, climate change. Again, another huge issue for globally, and, on Long Island, we are an island, and, every storm that comes by, we're losing beaches things just seem to be coming at us quicker and longer. And I'm interested to know what different roles the Nature Conservancy takes with climate change, of course, specifically on Long Island.
Yeah. So, Rebecca, like you said, it's been sort of a part of our everyday lives, especially recently. We had the big storms earlier in September. We sort of reminded of everything that's going on with Ida and with Henri. So, climate change is something that is important for us to talk about, and also, to talk about the future, because there is hope. I think the first thing is sort of, the role of acceptance. Climate change is here. The sooner that we can accept that new reality, the better off we're going to be, because it can be scary. But people have always done hard things, right? That isn't new for us. So we can do this. We can face the truth. We can determine our future. But we do need to start acting now. So, I think we can talk about the idea of we all have hope of figuring out climate change and figuring out what we can do here. We have a beautiful world. It's definitely one worth saving. So we have an incredible home, incredible resources here on Long Island. And I think it's important that we talk about keeping all of this safe for the future, for future generations. We want everybody to sort of be able to enjoy it as much as it's been enjoyed. So the Nature Conservancy is working on getting, real commitment from local organizations, but also from individuals, wanting something and talking about things. That's all really critical, but it's not enough. We need people to sort of start acting now. We have to eliminate emissions. We have to take pollution out of the air. We need to adapt to the changing climates, making sure that building codes are reflective of what's going on in the world now. We have more flooding than we used to. So we need folks to sort of take that next step and be committed to making changes and looking at what can be done in the world. I think that once we have that, once we have people that are looking at ways that they can make changes in their everyday lives, or ways that they can communicate with their local elected officials or federal elected officials, all that action inspires hope. I think that when you see your neighbors and you see the people that you trust doing something, it sort of gives you hope, and it makes you want to do something as well. So whether it's, composting for your garden, or taking public transportation, or building up the electric fleet, these are all things that matter, but they're also all things that we can talk about as a community and figure out, like, okay, why are you making these changes and what is going on? So I think that sort of those things are able to bring us together and sort of inspire more action. So, I think when we do things like that, it's in a way, it's like being a good neighbor. You're looking out for the fellow Long Islanders. You're looking out for future generations. I know right now things can be a little bit crazy and polarized, and it's certainly something I think that we can do as a community to sort of build back. Take a look at what's going on in your backyard. Get out there in nature, sort of figuring out, like, okay, what are the steps that I can make, whether it's septic, whether it's composting, whether it's driving less. There are all small actions that each one of us can take, and we can talk about it with our friends and our neighbors and sort of educate those people around us.
Natalie, your title is Community Partnership Manager. We're talking like individuals, what we can do, and we'll go back to that, but what kind of partners are you actually trying to get and to manage, if you will?
Yeah. So the Nature Conservancy is very interested in reaching out to groups that maybe we haven't traditionally spoken with or partnered with in the past. So there are a lot of great environmental groups across Long Island that we have been working with for many, many years. We have excellent community partners there. But, we're also looking to expand into communities that are being affected by climate change, folks that haven't been involved in the conversations before with us. It could be different religious groups. It could be different community groups. It could be the brothers and sisters, or, YMCA, or everybody, that's working on different community issues. I think a lot of times they intersect in ways that we haven't really talked about before. There are plenty of folks that are working on, or interested in climate environmentalism, but they're not really sure what they can do or how to be helpful. And I think that that's what the Nature Conservancy is trying to do now, is reach out to those groups and figure out, like, what are you interested in and what can we be helpful in? I think that one of the great things that I've seen, I've not been in this job long, but we have such passion and such commitment from younger folks, from kids in high school and in college. They're so dedicated to environmentalism and to conservation. It's something that they really understand and they're really trying to fight for. And we want to get involved with environmental groups and youth, figure out sort of how can we work together and what do they want to see, because this is going to be their home.
Would corporations or institutions also be targets for partnerships?
Of course. I think that our business leaders, different organizations, we have so much industry in Long Island, and they can be real partners in this. We want to hear from them, what can we do to be helpful? We want solutions that make good business sense, but also good environmental sense. How can we come to the table and talk about what works there? I think that we're pretty lucky in Long Island to have a lot of business leaders already that are very interested in conservation, and sort of figuring out how they can make the workforce a little bit cleaner and a little bit greener. So we want to hear from those folks, anybody that's interested in partnering on this and thinking about this and sort of brainstorming, what can the future look like and sort of how can we all work together? I think that that's going to be the most important thing, is bringing everybody to the table, because we have common goals, and we can, have some hard conversations and figure out, what is the best path forward for everybody.
One of the things that I'm curious about, all the guests that we have on, all different areas, all different topics, we ask all of them how COVID impacted them, and also there's some positive that has come out of it for everybody. We learned a lot of things. So I'm curious because, early on we were reading or hearing a lot that because people were working at home, not many people were driving, going to work, things sadly were shutting down, that it had a positive impact on the environment because there weren't as many pollutants. So I was wondering, is that true? And did we make a lot of strides because of it? And did we return to full impact of polluting, or did we learn something over COVID?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There was all this talk in the beginning of COVID when things were shutting down, how there was much less pollution from traffic and from cars and commutes and all that. With the Nature Conservancy, it's absolutely something that we've talked about in our return to work. A lot of companies are looking at what is the reemergence going to look like? What sort of model of work are we going to have now? And I think that, the environmental impact can't be understated there. It's something that should be brought into consideration. Having the less car pollution, especially in Long Island with our traffic, it's absolutely something to think about. I think that one of the highlights or the silver linings that you were saying that we learned sort of about ourselves in our year and a half staying indoors is how much we appreciate the beauty around us in Long Island, right? I think while being stuck inside and not being able to go to friends' houses or go out to eat, a lot of people were looking for ways to get outdoors and get active that way. We're so proud of our preserves across Long Island and having different trails and hikes and places where people can go to sort of be outside and be one with nature. That's something I feel like a lot of people were looking to do over the past year is, folks that maybe hadn't been hikers or hadn't been nature outdoorsy people before were looking for that excuse to get out and get their daily walk in and see the trees, see the sun. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that folks know, where our preserves are so that they always feel open and welcome to coming. I think that was absolutely, I know for me, one of the silver linings was being able to explore new parks in Long Island and explore different trails in Long Island to actually stop and think about everything that was
Right.
around me and all the beauty that we have.
Yeah,
I don't know how it fits, but on once a week on a Sunday, we have a group of cousins and whatever that walk on Jones Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the beach has about, at the shoreline, in many places, there's like a 5-foot cliff. There's no longer a flat line. It's like, I'm talking seriously, a 5-foot cliff. It's difficult to get over it. And I don't know how that, or what that means in terms of conservancy, but it sure tells me that the shoreline is taking a beating from a lot of this stuff. So I don't know how that fits into the equation. And does it have anything to do with global warming? I have no idea. But I do know that it impacted the beach, and that if people didn't come along with bulldozers or whatever they're going to do and level it, that whole thing might change appearance big time.
Yeah, it's something that we talk about when we talk about climate adaptation, sort of what does the world that we're in look like, and what can we do to offset what's going on. There was the big project down in Long Beach with the Army Corps of Engineers to build out the jetties to prevent erosion. So these are all sort of conversations that we can have with local partners, with state partners, federal partners, and figure out what can we do to preserve Long Island right now as it is, with the erosion, with everything that's going on with the storms. So these are all, ongoing conversations on how we can conserve our shorelines and our beauty, and sort of what makes Long Island Long Island.
I'm curious, just has there been any research done over the period of COVID to kind of, the positive impact that less pollutants in the air kind of contributed to maybe a smaller ozone layer? I don't know. Like, is there any research that you're aware of that was done to kind of just, detail, the less usage of things, fewer using of cars, the, being home, no planes in the air, fewer planes, fewer transportation?
To my knowledge, I don't think that research is completed yet. I can touch on internally what we saw,
Sure.
sort of, I think easier to measure, but during the pandemic, we saw a 300% increase in our preserve visitation of folks trying to get out and finding, a place to leave their house and go. I don't know about the environmental impact yet. I think that's something that, environmentalists are going to be studying for years to come, sort of what that year at home did for the planet.
I think there's more traffic right now than there was during the peak. I think every road that I go on is loaded with traffic. And I think it has to do with the fact that you point out people are getting out now. People are not using public transportation. And I have no statistical data to use, but I just personally believe that the traffic has increased dramatically.
Oh, definitely. I can tell you it has. And it's even, there's more traffic now than even before the pandemic. And
yes.
I think a lot of people are still wanting to get on a bus or a train with other people. I mean, I pass my train station every day, and it used to be before COVID that you couldn't get a spot even if you had a pass to park there. And now it's still empty. I mean, it's not a problem to get on a train. And there's still, I think, some areas are still on holiday schedules because they didn't need to kind of do their usual rush hour load of trains.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think, scary, part of the reemergence and figuring out what our new normal is going to look like. And part of it, I think still we have a ton of companies that aren't requiring folks to come in just yet. So people are not taking the train as much and sort of driving around as much. So, I think talking about conservation and environmental standpoint, we want to make sure that everybody knows about the public transportation options that are available, and letting them know, that does help. Being mindful of everybody's comfort level, of course, but trains, buses, always an option.
Right. I've seen a lot more electric cars, Teslas and hybrids on the road than ever, I have to say. I definitely have seen that. But we do have to take a quick break. This is 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. We're talking with Natalie Ryan. She is with the Nature Conservancy, and we will be right back after a short break.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. We've been speaking with Natalie Ryan from the Nature Conservancy. I'm Rebecca Miller, your co-host, along with Otto Lohse and Christina Liu, who is the radio show producer. So we jumped around a lot from different topics, but I think it's okay, because I think that there is just a lot of curiosity in what the Nature Conservancy does. And now I'm jumping back around again. So, you talked about funding that residents can qualify for cleaner cesspools. What other types of things, are there other types of funding or grants for people that live on Long Island that the Nature Conservancy has that they can use to improve their home, their footprint? Is there anything further?
Yeah. So right now, in addition to those septic monies that's available, there's an infrastructure bill that's currently being negotiated in Congress that would include billions of dollars to address the needs that we face in terms of climate change. At the state level, I mentioned that we have the Environmental Bond Act that's going to be on the ballot for next year. So that's November of 2022. Those funds are critical for New York to prepare for climate change and sort of build up our infrastructure. So making sure that we have the money from the state and federal governments, that is going to open up a lot of possibilities for Long Islanders. Talking about the different ways that we can change building codes to figure out, what is best for flood zones, or figuring out how to strengthen our infrastructure against storms and against weather issues. So those are two, sort of big things on the horizon that, if they come to fruition, will allow us to have much more funding in place for the changes that need to be made.
Okay, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking at this from like there's the upper level, which a lot of us have zero control over. Yeah. And then there's the lower level, which we do have some control over. What would you consider on the lower level, like us as individuals? Like I look at things like I see litter like I've never seen in my life. All right. When I was a kid, there was never litter. People would put the litter in their pocket and then put it in the garbage somewhere. That's a different kind of pollution. That's an eye pollution, if you will. But what can be done on a street level, if you will, where we are?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, since we have talked about the federal funding and state funding, folks can always reach out to their local politicians, their federal politicians, all their representatives. Having spent some time in Congress, I know that those phone calls, those letters, those emails, they do matter. And people that are passionate and involved in what they want, our leaders listen to that, and they understand what's important then to their constituencies and their communities. So I think that, not hesitating to contact your representative and tell them, what we need, what needs to get done for Long Island is imperative. I think second, we were talking earlier a bit about, what individuals can do and sort of the action that leads to hope. And I think, being vocal about what people are doing in their everyday lives and talking to their friends and their family, whether it's composting, whether it's switching out their water bottles for reusables, if they're buying an electric car, if they're setting up all these things, solar panels, I think that a lot of people are curious about those changes, but they think, I could never do that. It's not something that I could do in my everyday life. So as we talk to our friends and neighbors and we sort of discuss, the little changes that we made and how they're not so difficult, and how they really did help improve their lives or improve their quality of life. I think that, the importance of that can't be understated. Just sort of being open with one another, being good neighbors with one another, that inspires other folks to take action and say, okay, well, if they could do it and they feel better about it, maybe I could too. Maybe I should do a little bit more research when I'm buying a new car. Maybe I should do a little bit more research into the solar panels. I think sometimes folks are quick to sort of dismiss it and say, oh, it won't make a difference, but it does. And I think that that's really important for individuals to recognize and they're sort of leading the charge here.
Dan Cox, who's hiding behind the WCWP logo, has solar panels on his home. And I'm thinking, is there that would be something that I could visualize. I call it the super solar sucker, right? Someday that there will be panels that are part of the roof or very small or whatever. Is there a conversation that ever takes place with the people who manufacture that type of product in terms of shrinking the size and making it more commercially acceptable by a lot of people, as opposed to putting the
roof tile, roof tile being a mini solar.
Yeah. I think that apart from the environmental incentive, there is a big business incentive to have that sort of technology readily available and easily accessible. I'm not sure where, the engineers are on that, but I know it's something that people have been working on because, like you said, folks will be more likely to take a look into it if they don't see it as sort of a change in their home's aesthetic. But one of the things that, the Nature Conservancy has been doing over the past 2 years, we've actually built out a solar roadmap. So it is in partnership with engineers, with environmental groups, with local government, to show, an actual map of Long Island, and you can find it. It's nature.org/New York if you're interested. But it's a map of Long Island showing where we can put solar panels on municipal buildings so that they don't need to be, at the expense of homeowners or in taking up the homeowner's aesthetic, but they're actually on municipal buildings. So we've outlined this proposed map saying, if different municipalities could get involved and, we're happy to help and purchase the solar technology, we could have it on all these buildings and we could power Long Island solar. We could export solar, energy. So it's something that we're working on and trying to figure out, okay, this is the technology that we have and sort of what is the best way to use it? What is something that folks can get behind? So that's something that we've been actively working on in the last few years. And it just sort of is at the cusp of being ready. We just released our report and have the map out. So, it's, if folks are interested, some folks are renters and don't have, aren't able to put solar onto their own homes. Just taking a look at that. And, if they're interested or want to get involved, we'd love to hear from folks and sort of reaching out to their municipalities and figuring out okay, why don't you get involved with the Nature Conservancy and putting up these panels?
Yeah, like they're going out east, and I'm not sure whose property they were on, but there's huge fields of solar panels, which I think are connected with the sod farm, but I'm not sure. But you have to have a lot of space to do that. So they had a gigantic field with a bunch of solar panels, and I have no idea what that's used with, but I suspect that they could create electricity for a lot of people from a field like that, but I don't know. So what does that prove? Nothing.
Well, I think that, it's new technology for us, and folks are figuring out how it can be used and sort of how can we make it workable for people, realizing that not everybody wants solar panels on their home, or not everybody can put them on their home or afford to put them on their home, but where can we put them so that they make a difference? And that was sort of the reason why we put together this coalition and put this map together, is figuring out okay, well, municipal buildings and their roofs are, why not use them for alternative energy sources? Is there any reason not to? And I think that the conversation is sort of shifting to, well, is there any reason I should do this? To, is there any reason we shouldn't be doing this? So I think it's an exciting time for these new technologies and figuring out how we can best use them, to power our electrical needs for the future. They're only getting bigger. Folks are getting more connected and more devices. And, it's something that we need to figure out.
Well, electric cars are not going to reduce the amount of electricity that we use. So the need is even greater. We have a problem now when the summer's here and you have to have brownouts and whatever. So clearly we need more energy. Where is it going to come from?
Exactly. It's we're absolutely trending upwards and we're more connected and we have more technology than we've ever had. So we just need to figure out how to power it in a clean and green way, so that we're not, advancing at the cost of the environment. There are different ways to do this. And, I think part of my role with the Nature Conservancy and what the Nature Conservancy is trying to do is, talk to folks that are just getting involved in the conversation, that are just starting to get curious and figure out, what can we do to aid people in their curiosities and sort of advance that? And, we want to be where people are interested in putting out information that folks want. So I think it's a very exciting time to sort of be involved in environmentalism and conservation work. There's just so much going on.
I just thought of something as a marketing type person. Would Nature Conservancy think about having like an exhibit, and they have exhibitors there who create solar and they create whatever kinds of water, like cesspool benefits that you can create through this company or whatever. You ever think about having something like that where you have booths that you can go to? And
you are absolutely reading my mind. I think that COVID makes it a bit challenging, but I have big ideas for what we can do to connect with homeowners, connect with Long Islanders, and just make the new technologies a little bit more accessible, and let people get information. I think that is the biggest hurdle is, if you don't know too much about it, of course, you're not going to be excited about it. Folks need to learn a little bit more and to do their research. And then I think that it's very exciting and people will realize that.
Like Nassau Coliseum is just itching to have a nice big exhibit of some kind that has a bunch of people who would help create a better environment, if you will, if you use their product or their services or whatever.
Absolutely.
So to shift again, I'm not a gardener. I'm not a great gardener. I do have a house on Long Island with property, and I'm interested in composting, but I'm not really going to start a garden at this point in my life. Very busy. I have a full-time job and just like every other Long Island person. What can people do? Like, are you familiar with like the whole composting process? And can someone who doesn't really do a garden just say, hey, collect the stuff that can be composted, dig a little hole and put it in the ground? Is that something that we could do? I mean, how does that all work?
Yeah. So I think that, it's been a little bit of a quarantine hobby for some people. I know I am one of many that had built my raised box garden and got involved with it last summer. It certainly is a skill. I'm not the best at it, but I am learning. I'm committed to learn. But they have, all these new ways to make it easy for folks to compost, all these different systems that are available online, the countertop system where it sort of seals everything in so you don't have to deal with the smell that comes with composting. They have all these great new technologies where you can just have it right on your countertop and collect all of your scraps and everything that can be composted. And even if you don't have a garden, a lot of homeowners have landscaping in front of their homes or in the back of their homes, things that you could use that for. So, if it's something that is of interest and something that people would like to learn more about, I absolutely would encourage people to take a look at the new systems. And I think that part of the fun of being a homeowner or renting a home or being in Long Island is sort of figuring out like what ways can you get involved with what's going on around you. And, I think just like the sourdough or what was it, painting, there's lots of different hobbies that have come out of quarantine, and composting and gardening can certainly be one of them.
That's good. Another thing comes to mind. I remember, I'm just thinking about all these things when I was younger. Again, it was always encouraged to not waste water. Like there wasn't a huge reason why, but when I was younger, it was all, like today we have so much information, but, we learned you never waste water, and I know that the older generation, I'm speaking on my mother and my mother's cousins, and when we would get together, Otto, for Passover or whatever it was, I would always be going in the kitchen and turning off the water faucet because, they put the water on, start cleaning, go talk to someone, and I'm like, you got the water running, you just turn it off, and they'd be like, why'd you turn off the water? I'm like, because you got to conserve water here, and they just didn't get it. So I did my part when it came to that. Otto, is that something that rings true to you too?
Yeah, I think there was a very different mentality. Like
Right.
I described the littering thing. My mother used to say, if you had a piece of paper or gum wrapper or whatever, put it in your pocket and later you throw it out. And it's just a mentality that existed. If you weren't in the room, you shut the lights off. I don't do that now, I admit, but that's the character and the mentality. Things were different back then. People, it was not just money. It was a mentality that you just didn't waste stuff.
Right.
You had a phone that lasted. My father and mother's phone must have lasted for 30 years. It was a big black phone, and it was there forever. And the whole, that doesn't work. My tablet doesn't work. I'll buy a new one. Nobody fixes anything because it costs you more to get it fixed than it does to buy a new one, which is a problem. But that holds true for beyond water. Just a lot of things. If you had air conditioning, that's why a lot of people now who are older will almost rather die without the air conditioner on. I'm not in that camp, but there are a lot of people that say, I'm not putting that air conditioner on. Well, why do you have the air conditioner? So I can put it on. Well, no, the mentality is so ingrained that you can't change it.
So what came first? Is it they don't build things to last, or people just don't want to?
I think it's two things. All right. I think one is the turnover of new products competitively, particularly electronics, home products, refrigerators, you name it. There's nothing that there's somebody else coming along that's trying to make a better mousetrap, if you will, a better refrigerator, a better tablet, a better smartphone. And then you hit streaks like, to me, the smartphone is an example. We went through stages where God knows how many million smartphones there are in the garbage somewhere. But we're in another category now where you have to think long and hard about spending another $1,000 so you can get a small blip better than you had before. And I think back when the evolution of products was much slower than it is now. Believe it or not, there's something that's taking place right now that's going to slow down development. And that is this, the ability to get chips newly designed. It takes forever now to get the chips, first of all. And it used to be an easy process. They would change the chips and, put a new chip in a new smartphone, a new tablet, a new toaster or whatever you might have. Yeah,
the car industry too.
Cars are a classic case now. A car is an electronic device, and it's going to get more so when it's electric. And all those changes could happen rapidly because the electronics ability was there to change these things. And that's slowed down right now for a variety of reasons. COVID created a huge backlog, and they just can't get the chips. So my point being that I think that type of thing is going to slow down. And I guess the question was originally, why, is it that the products were worse, or not as good as they used to be. I think it's a combination of the products are built a lot quicker. They are durable in many cases, but they do break. And when they break, you have to buy a new one because you can't find anybody to fix the thing, whatever it is.
Rebecca, what you were saying before, how much information we have now. Before you just sort of did things to do things, and now we understand, Otto, to your point, with all the new items that are coming out that, aren't made to last. There's a ton of information available now. And I think definitely a sort of new way of doing business. A lot of different companies are looking for ways to make their items more sustainable and have, plans for their end of life where they could be recycled or reused. And I think that that is sort of going to be a great sort of next step in business and figuring out, okay, well, where can I shop? Where can I spend my money knowing that it's going to be sustainable and responsible?
Natalie, thank you so much. I can't believe it's done. The hour is over. So much information. I'm sure we'll definitely have you back. Thank you so much for coming on Project Independence and You. We do have to take a quick break.
Thank you.
And thank you. You've been listening to 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.